Okay, hopefully you tried this set on your own. You tried to fill in the table and use a pattern to help you. And hopefully you recognize that -3 times 3 is like 3 groups of -3. So if we add 3 -3s, we get -9. So this was -9. Here we had 2 groups of -3, so -3 plus -3 was -6. And then one group of -3 is -3. Any number times 0 is 0. And so now we're just looking for a pattern. And we know that each time we're increasing by 3. We're increasing our number. So -9 plus 3 is -6. -6 plus 3 is -3. -3 plus 3 is 0. So 0 plus 3 is 3. And 3 plus 3 is 6. So I used a pattern to complete my table to tell me that -3 times -2 is +6. So at this point, we've kind of got a set of examples for us to use down here for type of product. So in example 1, we had 3 times 2. And if you look back here, we had 3 times 2 in example 1, and the product was positive. The product was 6, and it was positive, and it was a positive times a positive. Then in example 2, 3 times -2. 3 times -2, we used repeated addition to find this -6. So the product was -6, was a negative answer. But it was a positive times a negative. And then in example 3, we had -3 times 2, and if you look at that, our answer was -6. So I'm going to put in my table here that my product was -6, which is negative, and it was a negative times a positive. And then in example 4 was -3 times -2, which gave us a positive answer, and that was a negative times a negative. So we're looking at, is there a rule? Can we figure out a rule? When we have a positive times positive, it's positive. When it's positive times negative, it's negative. When it's negative times positive, it's negative. And when it's negative times a negative, it's positive. So 6 times 3 we know is 18. That's positive. So we've got a positive times a positive. Gives us a positive answer. 2 times -5 is 2 groups of -5. Which is -10. So we've got a positive times a negative, and that gives us a negative answer. -6 times 5 is 5 groups of -6, which is -30. We've got a negative times a positive, which gives us a negative. And -5 times -3, this is where we don't necessarily have a trick. We're going to have to look back at our other example. -3 times -2 was a negative times a negative and gave us a positive answer. So I'm going to assume that my answer here is a positive 15 and have a negative and a negative. So we've got a table complete, and now we've got some, oops, and I'm sorry. There, now you should be able to copy it. On the next page, there's a list of 3 questions. I want you to think about those 3 questions, and I want you to write your answers in before you see the next video. So I want you to think about looking at this. Positive times a positive gave us a positive. A positive times a negative gave us a negative. Negative times positive gave us a negative. A negative times a negative gave us a positive answer. So I want you to think about answering these 3 questions on your own, and then come back at the next video and see how your answers, written answers, compare with my written answers.